Today I spent time at the grave of Captain Edward Haughton McConkey. If you walk near the back section of Barrie Union Cemetery, you will see his red granite headstone. Directly across from it stands a second unique grey monument. It was erected not by family, but by the officials of his shipping line. It reads, "To the memory of Captain Edward H. McConkey, master of the SS Regina, who went down with his ship, faithful unto death." Captain McConkey lived right here in Barrie on Ross Street. He was only 34 years old, a young family man with a wife and 2 small children. November 13th was his very first season as a captain. He was just trying to finish his final runs before the winter freeze locked up the lakes. He had no idea he was sailing straight into the worst maritime disaster the Great Lakes would ever see. The SS Regina was a sturdy, British-built steel package freighter, roughly 75 meters or 250 feet long. On November 8, 1913, she was loaded down with a heavy mismatched cargo for the upper lakes: baled hay, pipe, canned goods, and a massive shipment of hardware including thousands of glass bottles. When McConkey steered her out into Lake Huron, the weather reports predicted normal November gales. But 2 separate storm fronts were on a collision course. A low-pressure system moving from the American South slammed directly into a bitter Arctic front from the north. The result was a meteorological monster, a weather bomb that historians now call the White Hurricane. By Sunday, November 9th, the lake was a whiteout. 80-kilometer-an-hour winds shifted overnight into a more than 100-kilometer-an-hour hurricane-force northwesterly blast. The temperature plummeted below freezing. It wasn't just a storm, it was a blinding blizzard casting 10-meter waves that destroyed everything in their path. Captains on the water lost all visibility, all sense of direction, and all control. This is the Regina in her final hours. Somewhere out in the dark, frozen expanse of southern Lake Huron, the ship was completely at the mercy of the water. Imagine standing on that bridge. The freezing spray would have coated the superstructure in tons of heavy listing ice. The massive waves would have hammered the steel hull, tearing away hatch covers. We know from maritime records that McConkey fought to save his crew. He managed to navigate the blind, crippled ship toward the relative safety of the Michigan shore, eventually dropping both anchors to try and hold her against the wind. But the lake was too powerful. Sometime that Sunday night, the Regina capsized and sank. The storm lasted for 4 days. When the sky finally cleared, 12 ships had vanished completely, and more than 250 sailors were dead. For months, Captain McConkey was counted among the missing. It wasn't until the following spring, in mid-1914, that his body finally washed ashore near Port Sanilac, Michigan. He was still wearing his life jacket. In his pocket, inspectors found his brass watch, frozen forever at the time he went into the water. They also found his small, leather-bound captain's log. His wife painstakingly dried out each waterlogged page, preserving his final handwritten entry from November 7th, just 2 days before the storm hit. The wreck sat undisturbed on the lake bed for 73 years until divers located her in 1986, resting completely upside down in 80 feet of water. Today, no one alive remembers Edward McConkey's voice, and the fury of the 1913 storm has faded into local folklore. But history isn't just about the grand events, it's about the individuals who lived through them. By taking the time to sketch these stones, to paint the ship, and to look a little closer at the names carved into the granite here in Barrie, we record his work, his final sacrifice, and the fact that he was here.